My son-in-law lifted an envelope I had quietly placed beside his wife's plate at his own Thanksgiving table, glanced inside, and said, in a voice he wanted 5 of his clients to hear, "Earl, your money is not welcome at this table. We don't need it, we don't want it, and frankly, the people in this room would find it awkward if they were reminded whose father was paying the bill on this family." I felt the old pocket watch against my thigh. The one Eliza gave me on our wedding day in 1981, and I did not raise my voice. I put the envelope back in my coat. I shook the hand of one of his clients on the way out. I drove home. Then I made a call I had been building toward for 4 years, to a man whose number I had just been given. His name was Tom. He was Davis Herrick's business partner of 11 years. That call was the first thing I did. It was not the last. What Tom told me at 7:14 on a Tuesday morning, about an envelope from my late wife's life insurance, about a signature on a paper I didn't know existed, about a Delaware trust whose initials match a charity Eliza gave $500 to in 2021, is the reason my daughter came home. If you've ever had your kind of money called out at someone else's table, if you've ever been told you were the wrong kind of help, hit subscribe. You belong here. Drop me a note in the comments if you've ever been told your money was the wrong kind of money. I will read every one, but before I tell you what Tom said to me on the phone, you need to know how a retired tool and die maker from a Rust Belt town in Ohio ended up at Davis Herrick's butcher block counter with cash in his coat and a wedding pocket watch on his thigh. My name is Earl Penrose. I am 62 years old. I worked the late shift at the windshield wiper plant in Garfield for 38 years, the kind of factory where you can tell a man's care by the way he lays out his wrenches at the end of a shift. I retired at 60. I never missed a day I wasn't bleeding. Eliza, my wife, died in October 2020, ovarian cancer. By the time they found it, it was everywhere. She was 59. She had been a waitress at the Hudson Diner before we had kids, and she saved her tips for 4 years to buy me a Hamilton pocket watch in 1981, the year we were married. I still wind it every morning at 6. That watch was on my thigh the night of the dinner. It will be on this porch by the end of this story, but on someone else's wrist. We had one child, Marigold. We called her Mari. She was the kind of kid who lined up her stuffed animals by size before bed, who read the ingredients on the box before she ate the cereal. I drove her to college in a U-Haul in 2008. I built her bedroom dresser out of cherry wood I had been saving since before she was born, finished it on the porch one August, with the windows open so the whole street could smell the oil. We owned one house on Schiller Street, a small bungalow with a porch just wide enough for 2 rocking chairs. Eliza paid half. I did the wiring and the plumbing. We never had a sitter. I coached Mari's 3rd grade softball team. We took the ferry to Put in Bay the summer she turned 7, and she fell asleep on the railing of the upper deck, and I carried her off the boat without waking her up. That was the version of our family people talked about at the Hudson Diner on Sundays. That was the version Davis Herrick later tried to outrun. Davis walked into our lives in the spring of 2018, on the arm of Mari, who was 28 and dating again after a long year of nothing. Davis wore glasses he didn't need. He drove a Q5. His family lived in Shaker Heights. He had a business card with a serif font that said Hearthline Wealth Partners. He proposed to Mari in October 2019 on the roof of a hotel in Cleveland that he said his firm held a client dinner at twice a year. Mari said yes. Eliza was already 4 months into chemo. Davis came with me to the oncologist's appointments. He was useful. He drove. He took notes. He held my arm when the doctor used the word palliative. I did not yet know how he would use those visits later. Davis and Mari married in March 2020, 2 weeks before the country shut down. We held the wedding in our own backyard. 40 people, no caterer, Eliza in a wig she had not yet shown to anyone outside the house. I gave them a check for $5,000, drawn on the credit union on Graham Road, and Davis shook my hand and said, "Earl, this is going to make a real difference. Thank you." Eliza died October 18, 2020, at 4:11 in the morning, in our bedroom, in the chair by the window where she liked to read. I was holding her hand. Mari was at our kitchen table with Davis. Davis said while she was crying, "Earl, let me handle the estate paperwork. Let me handle the IRA change. I'll keep Mari out of the boring parts. Trust me on this. I know what I'm doing." I signed what Davis handed me. I was a man who had spent 38 years calibrating steel to within 2/10,000ths of an inch, and at 5 in the morning, 3 days after my wife died, I signed 3 pages I did not understand, because Davis was the only adult in the room who was not crying, and I was grateful. About a month later, a thick envelope arrived at my mailbox with Hearthline Wealth Partners' return address. Inside was a 1-page letter and a 1/2-inch stack of forms, and on the back of the letter in thin ink was the typed line, "Estate of Eliza Penrose, care of Davis Herrick. Hearthline, Wealth Partners, account HWP 0044. I did not understand why my late wife's estate was going through my son-in-law's office. I tucked the envelope in the kitchen drawer where I keep the light bulbs, and I forgot about it. I forgot about it for 4 years. What I did not know that month was the same thing I would not know for another 3 Thanksgivings. Is that the account? Number HWP 0044 belonged to a Delaware trust, whose initials matched a charitable fund. Eliza had once given $500 to, in 2021. Except 2021 had not happened yet because we were still in 2020. The trust that matched that fund did not exist yet. Davis would build it the following spring. He would build it out of $600,000 he did not yet have, drawn from clients whose names he would type into a spreadsheet he kept in a locked drawer in his upstairs study. What I want you to understand is this. The kernel of the lie was planted the week my wife died. The envelope was the receipt. I just did not know how to read it yet. In November of 2024, Davis invited me to Thanksgiving dinner at his and Mari's renovated Colonial in Hudson, Ohio, a house I had put $2,400 of Eliza's dividend checks toward the kitchen of, indirectly, by slipping cash to Mari whenever she asked for groceries. I knew she did not need groceries for. I did not ask what it was for. I gave what I had. Davis said Earl should come. He said bring family, leave politics at the door. Other guests, 3 couples, all of them Davis's clients. One of them was a woman named Iris DeMarco, who had babysat Mari on Friday nights, when Eliza was working the breakfast shift at the diner. I drove my 2014 Tacoma. I wore the only good shirt I own, a blue Oxford LL. Bean button-down. I have washed 100 times. I walked into a house with a wolf range and a quartz island and a butcher block counter I had not seen before. I sat down at the dining table between Mari and a man in his 60s with a pinky ring. Davis carved the turkey. I had brought an envelope with $2,400 cash inside it. I had been setting aside $200 a month from my pension for the last year, since Mari told me the granite counters they had always wanted were too expensive to do this year. I did not say anything. I slid the envelope under the bread plate beside Mari's napkin. Davis saw it. Davis picked it up under the table. Davis opened it beneath the linen, paused. Davis excused himself, touched my shoulder, and asked me to step into the kitchen. I went. The kitchen had a new wolf range and a new quartz island, both of which I had not laid eyes on before, and which I would learn that night were not paid for. Davis left the kitchen door open so the dining room could hear. He wanted them to hear. Davis said, "Earl, I appreciate the thought, but we don't need cash gifts in this house. It makes Marigold feel small. And honestly, Earl, some of these clients might find it awkward. They didn't come here to be reminded that the family handyman is pitching in. I love you, but take it back." I touched the pocket watch through my coat. I did not raise my voice. I did not call him a name. I said, "Davis, okay, I'll take it home." I put the envelope back in my coat. I walked through the dining room on the way out. I shook the hand of the man with the pinky ring and said, "Happy Thanksgiving." I shook the hand of Iris DeMarco. I did not look at Mari. I drove home. I sat in the kitchen in the chair where Eliza used to sit, and I set the watch on the table in front of her chair. I sat there until 2 in the morning. I did not call Davis. I did not call Mari. I did not pour a drink. I just sat. What broke me was not that Davis had shamed me in front of strangers. What broke me was that Mari had not stood up. Mari had not looked up from her plate. Mari had not corrected him. She had not even moved her glass. That was the moment I understood something I did not want to understand. That this was not the first time Mari had been told who her father was, in front of other people, by the man she had married. She had simply gotten used to it. 3 days later, Mari called. She said, "Dad, Davis didn't mean it the way you took it. He was protecting the room." I said, "Mari, you should ask him what he meant then." Mari didn't call for 3 more months. I went back to the bench grinder in the garage. I rebuilt the carburetor on the lawnmower. I walked to the diner at the end of Schiller Street, and I ate the ham and eggs I always eat. I was not angry yet. I was quiet. I started to notice things. In January 2025, Iris DeMarco called me. Iris is 71. She has lived 2 doors down from me on Schiller Street since 1984. She had been Mari's babysitter in the years when Eliza was working double shifts at the diner and I was on the late line at the plant. Iris said, "Earl, I hate to bother you, but could you come look at a letter? Davis has been managing my late husband's retirement account since 2016, and the last statement says we lost $40,000 last year, and I don't understand what I'm reading." I went over. I am not a financial advisor. I have spent my whole life in a factory, but I keep my own IRA in cash at the credit union on Graham Road, and I have read every quarterly statement I have ever received in the mail, because I am the kind of man who reads things. I read hers. The statement had 3 quarterly deductions labeled, advisory fee, 3.5%, debited to a firm called Hearthline Wealth Partners, Davis's firm. Below the fee line were 4 quarterly withdrawals, each one labeled estate reallocation, each drawing out $9,500 to a recipient identified only as HWP, Delaware Instrument. I had worked with Delaware Instruments once in the union, when a contractor had tried to slip pension contributions through one. I knew what they were for. I did not call Davis. I put Iris's statement in the kitchen drawer, beside the 2020 envelope from Hearthline. I sat down at the table. The watch was in my pocket. I said out loud in an empty kitchen, "Earl, you have been gone from your own life for 4 years, and now is when you start paying attention." Then I started paying attention. Early February 2025. Mari called crying. Mari doesn't cry. She hadn't cried since her mother's funeral. Mari said, "Dad, Davis has been cold. He won't sleep in our bed. He locked his upstairs study last night and I tried the handle. This morning I found a stack of papers in his desk drawer that have my signature on them, and I don't remember signing them. They are loan papers, Dad. They are loan papers against the house you and Mom had. They are against Schiller Street." I sat down. I felt the watch against my thigh under the table. I said, "Mari, do not sign anything else. Do not call Davis. Do not sign anything anyone asks you to sign. Do not move. Call me back at 7 tomorrow morning. Call me from a landline, not his Wi-Fi. Mari, do you understand?" She said, "Dad, what is going on?" I said, "I don't know yet, but I will know by morning." Then, for the first time in my life since the day my mother told me she was leaving, I lay awake all night. I did not watch the clock. I watched the ceiling. At 7:14 the next morning, before I could call Mari, my phone rang. The caller ID said, "Levesque, Tom." I answered. Tom said, "Mr. Penrose. My name is Tom Levesque. I have been Davis Herrick's business partner at Hearthline Wealth Partners for 11 years. I am leaving the firm in 8 days. Before I do, I have to tell you something. Davis has been siphoning client retirement funds into a private entity registered in Delaware for at least 26 months. He is doing it through a trust whose initials match a charitable fund your late wife gave $500 to in 2021. He took over $600,000 from Iris DeMarco's late husband's estate alone. He took $18,000 from your wife Eliza's life insurance through a deceased spousal rider. That's the form that lowers the payout when the policyholder dies within a contestability window. The face value on the form, $712, was $50,000. The writer reduced it to $32,000. The difference is gone. He forged Marigold's signature on a home equity application against Schiller Street, the week your wife was dying. He has done this to at least 4 other clients I have already identified. I have the records. I am sending them to you. I asked in a voice I did not recognize as mine, "Why are you telling me this?" Tom said, "Because when he finds out I am leaving, he is going to come for your family. He did it to his last partner in 2017. He did it to his assistant in 2019. I want there to be at least one person in his life who is not alone when he does." I said, "Tom, hold the line. Don't hang up. Don't send the package until I tell you where to send it." Tom said, "Yes, sir." I called Raya Pruitt at 7:18. Raya is the lawyer my brother-in-law had used to unwind a construction contract in 2018. Raya said, "Earl, come in alone. Do not call your daughter yet. Do not sign anything you don't understand. Do not call Davis. Do not tell Marigold. Eat something first." At Raya's office, I laid out the kitchen drawer. The 2020 envelope. Iris's statement. The HELOC papers I had not yet seen, but which my daughter had described to me on the phone. I also laid out the watch, because Earl didn't know what else to do with his hands. Tom FedExed the records the next morning. I read the index on the porch in the rocking chair Eliza had used. 11 pages? Page 9 was about the Schiller Street home equity line. Page 11 was about the life insurance writer. The watch was in my pocket the whole time. My first move was a complaint to the Ohio Division of Securities. The second was a complaint to FINRA. The third was a complaint to the State Bar's Client Protection Fund. The fourth was a phone call to a woman I had worked with on the Union Grievance Committee at the plant named Hattie, who had moved into the IRS as a tax examiner. Hattie told me, off the record, there was a criminal referral channel I could use. I used it. I did not call Davis. I did not call Mari. I waited 8 days. Davis found out Tom had left. Davis panicked. Davis called me on a Wednesday afternoon, the second week in March. Davis said, "Earl, we should have coffee. I want to clear the air about Thanksgiving." I said, "Davis, name a place. Bring your wife." Davis said, "Earl, let's keep this between us men." I said no. The diner, 9 a.m. Thursday. I sat across from Davis at the booth by the window. I had not told Mari in advance, but Mari showed up. Mari had been sleeping on the couch in her own house for 10 days. She had stopped trusting Davis, and she had started to trust her father again. Mari sat next to Davis at first, then after a minute, she moved next to me. She said, "Dad, what's going on?" I said, "Davis, I have a question. Did you take the deceasedal rider off of Eliza's life insurance claim?" Davis said, "Earl, I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "Page 2, line 14. $18,000. Where did it go, Davis?" Davis said, "Earl, I think somebody with an agenda has gotten to you." I said, "Tom Levesque sent me 11 years of internal records. He was your partner. He didn't get to me, Davis. He told me the truth. He told me about the Delaware Trust. He told me about HWP 0044. He told me what you did the week Eliza was dying, when I was 3 days into the worst grief of my life, and you handed me a pen because I would have signed anything." Davis said, "Earl, sit down. We are sitting." I opened the manila envelope. I placed 4 documents on the table. I said, "This copy is for you. This copy is for Mari. This copy is for the Division of Securities. They have already asked me questions, Davis. They are calling your office Tuesday at 8:30. Davis's face went white. Mari's face went red. Mari said, "Dad, what is in this folder?" I said, "Everything, sweetheart, including the HELOC papers you found. Including the HELOC papers you didn't find. Including the loan application Davis signed your name to the night your mother was breathing her last breaths in our bedroom. There is a notarized page, sweetheart, page 3, where he forged his own wife's signature on the night she was at her mother's bedside. He didn't even wait until the funeral. Mari looked at Davis. Mari said, "Davis, did you sign my name while my mother was dying?" Davis said, "Mari, I was trying to help." I said, "Helping doesn't require forgery, Davis. Helping doesn't require a Delaware instrument. Helping doesn't require taking $18,000 from a 62-year-old tool and die maker's life insurance check I was supposed to live on for the next 20 years. Helping doesn't require a 3.5% advisory fee on a 71-year-old widow whose husband built the dock at the marina with his own hands. Helping doesn't require you to call out the kind of money a man threw in an envelope on your own table last Thanksgiving in front of the people you were stealing from." I paused. I said, "You didn't take that envelope back because you didn't need it, Davis. You took it back because it would have reminded the people in that room what kind of family you married into. Because it would have reminded them that the family you married into is not the kind of family that comes from money. It is the kind of family that makes the money. And you have spent 11 years pretending that you come from money, because if your clients ever learned you didn't, the model collapses." The model, Davis, was always the model. The clients were never the clients. We were the backdrop. Davis stood up. Davis said, "Earl, I'm leaving." I said, "You are not leaving, Davis. The division is Tuesday morning, 8:30. I hope you bring the same smile you brought to Thanksgiving." Mari stood up. Mari walked to my side of the booth. Mari didn't say anything. She sat next to her father. She put her hand on the table. The pocket watch in my pocket bumped against her wrist. The state financial regulator knocked on Davis's office door Tuesday at 8:32 a.m. Davis was arrested on 4 felony counts of wire fraud and 1 count of forgery. His license was revoked on the spot. Bond was set at $250,000 cash or surety. He could not make it. He made 1 call from the booking area to his parents. Tom's full records arrived at Raya's office by FedEx the same day. Raya filed a whistleblower motion. Hearthline Wealth Partners was shut down within 90 days. The Delaware Trust was unwound in federal court by a receiver named Walls. Iris DeMarco was contacted by the receiver. Her estate was restored to within 3% of its 2020 value. Marigold's forged Hellogue was unwound in 6 weeks. The life insurance difference came back to me in a certified check 2 months later, with interest, drawn on the same insurance company that had paid it out in 2020. In October 2025, Davis pleaded guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of forgery. He was sentenced to 4 years in a federal correctional institution in West Virginia. He is no longer allowed to touch another client's retirement account. Davis's father called me. I did not pick up. Davis's mother called Mari and cried into her voicemail. Mari called me and said, "Dad, do I have to call her back?" I said, "No, sweetheart, you do not." Marigold moved back into the Schiller Street house for 2 months. She slept in her old bedroom. The dresser I built her out of cherry was still against the wall. She cried in that bedroom the first night, and I pretended not to hear. Then she rented a small place a mile down the road on Bell Street in her old elementary school district. She has her own key to my house. She calls every Sunday. She comes for coffee every Wednesday. She has not taken Davis back. These days, in the late spring of 2026, I sit on the porch in the morning with the pocket watch in my pocket. The wind off Lake Erie smells like rain. Last Sunday, Marigold came early. She put a box on the porch rail. She said, "Dad, I bought this for you." I opened the box. Inside was a new chain for the pocket watch, slim and silver, so I could wear it on the outside of my shirt without it catching on my coat. I said, "Mari, you didn't have to." She said, "Dad, yes I did." I held the watch in my hand for a minute. I said, "Mari, this was your mother's. She bought it before there was a you. She saved 4 years of tips to buy it." The engraving on the back says, E to E, October 1981. She said, "I know, Dad. You told me." I said, "I want you to hold it now." She said, "Dad, what are you doing?" I said, "I am giving it to you. I am not going to die soon, sweetheart. but I am giving it to you now because you came home. She put the chain on her wrist. The watch hung by her hand. She said, "Dad, will you tell me about her?" I said, "I will tell you about her for the rest of my life." If you've ever had your kind of money called out at someone else's table, if you've ever been told you were the wrong kind of help, if your daughter ever came home, drop me a note in the comments. I will read it. I will not be able to answer everyone, but I will read it. And if this channel has ever made you feel like the man you actually are, subscribe. Stay. There are more stories like this one on this channel, and most of them end with something somebody carried through a kitchen, into a yard, into a courtroom, and back home.